Global Conservation Corps presents the Rhino Man podcast. I'm John Jerko, your host, and one of the directors of Rhino Man the movie. This podcast series is a way for me to interview top conservationists on the topics of rhinos, the poaching crisis, the importance of rangers, and community engagement, all as a way to create awareness around these issues and to promote the coming release of our documentary film. In this episode, I'm talking with my friend Donaxi Borjes Flores. Donaxi graduated with a degree in marine biology from the Universidad Autónoma de Baja California Sur. She then volunteered on Guadalupe Island, west of Mexico's Baja California Peninsula, where she was able to work with rangers stationed on the island. Shortly after, she applied for and took a job as a ranger working for the Comisión Nacional de Áreas Naturales Protegidas on that same island. In this conversation, we talk about Donaxi's connection to the ocean, her path through higher education, and how she found herself working on this small protected island. We go into the many duties she performs as a ranger, some of the research and projects taking place in this unique biome, and we even talk about her experience cage diving with great whites. This has been a great opportunity to learn what rangers are doing from places outside of the African context, and Donaxi is full of passion, energy, and love for her work. So without further ado, let's jump into this conversation. All right, Donaxi, welcome to the show. It's an honor and pleasure to have you on the Rhino Man podcast.
Hi, everyone who are listening. Hi, John.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. So we first met at the World Ranger Congress in 2019 before all this pandemic craziness happened. And it was a really, really cool experience. I don't know, I'd love to get your thoughts on what that Congress was like for you, how you decided to get there, or I don't know if you were nominated or wanted to go, or how it all happened and what your experience was like, because it's a pretty special event.
It was a huge thing for me that year. I've heard about the Ranger Congress before. I knew about the one what happened in Colorado, but I knew about that Congress after it happened. And I was like, I wish I could go. And then at the beginning of 2019, one of my colleagues in the institution that I work talked to me about that. Probably we're going to be some kind of grant with WWF for rangers to participate in the Congress. And it was going to be a female ranger panel, and they wanted me to participate in it. So I jumped right in.
Oh, that's exciting.
And in November, I was there, and it was amazing to see all the rangers from all different parts of the world. It was very interesting and very emotional for me.
Yeah. Were there any highlights that stood out to you?
One of the things that have much more impact in me was how all the rangers are very close, form like an immediate alliance with each other. It's like a big community. We know we exist, but to see us together in that special moment was cathartic.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not a ranger, but I was there, promoting the film and helping out a little bit, and it was super special to see. I feel like that's one of the things I heard from a lot of people, especially people that worked maybe in more remote areas and didn't have as much access to other people. And, for them, it was like, oh, this is so amazing to be able to connect and see that other people are doing this work and support each other and make connections and all those things. So it was a cool thing to see and witness.
Yes, and also that in most of our day-to-day work, we are very similar. We have very similar issues that deal with the day-to-day field work. And that was very comforting that we are not alone.
That's so cool. Did you get to do any of the game drives and go into the Chitwan National Park?
Yes. And we saw a rhino.
Yeah, those rhinos are amazing. The one-horn rhinos.
And the rhinos in the street. That was awesome. And
oh, yeah.
We got the chance to see when the park rangers were working with the elephants. And it was a fallen tree and branches that were closing the road that we are going. And the rangers came in with the elephants and moved the tree and the branches. And it was super cool.
That's really cool. I didn't get to see that. So they like use their trunks and actually like move the trees out of the way.
See?
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a special experience. And yeah, definitely looking forward to the next event like that. But why don't you give us a little introduction to yourself? What's your role right now? Where are you working? What's your work? Give us kind of a brief overview before we get started.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm a marine biologist. I study in La Paz, Baja California, Mexico. To all the people that are listening, I'm from Mexico. And it's a big, mega diverse country. And so we have a lot of natural protected areas that are administered by the government. And in one natural protected area that's called Biosphere Reserve Guadalupe Island, and is part of the National Commission of Natural Protected Areas. Is like the National Park Service in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We have this similar in Mexico. And I became a park ranger because I was volunteering in Guadalupe Island in the monitoring program. And then a few years later was an opening for park ranger, and I signed in.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, I want to go into your story and, especially Guadalupe Island and learn more about that. But let's dive into your past first. Where were you growing up, I guess, in Mexico? And how did you get connected to conservation? Did you have any early experiences?
I was born in Mexico City. And when I was very little, me and my family moved to La Paz, is in the Baja Peninsula, in the southern part of Baja Peninsula. And then I was connected with the sea. So my parents and I and my sister were to the beach very often. And we have these amazing friends that were going to the picnic with us to the beach. And then I became very curious about that particular ecosystem.
Yeah.
The sea always amazed me. And all the little animals and the plants. And when I was little, I said that when I grow up, I wanted to be an explorer, a naturalist. So one person told me, well, you can be a biologist. And I said, well, what is that about, or what? And you're living here in where they have marine biologists. You can study here in the place that I was already living. So I stayed there, and it was the best decision ever. Yeah.
How old were you when you were starting to think about, being an adventurer or becoming a marine biologist?
Like 6 years.
Wow. So you were pretty young.
Yes.
You were hooked once you got to that ocean. You wanted to be in the water and explore.
Yes. And collecting things and taking notes.
So you were already like taking notes and being a little scientist when you were young. That's amazing. Did you swim when you were pretty young as well in the ocean or the Sea of Cortez?
Not that much. I was more in the beach, diving in the water when I was little. But then I knew about scuba diving, and
a whole new world opened up, huh? Yeah. So you really liked looking at all the little creatures and things in the sand and on the ground and collecting them, huh?
Yes.
So what was your first experience in studying to become a marine biologist? How did you find your way into that area of school? You said there were schools there that were teaching it, the university there, or?
Yes.
How did you get into it?
Well, in the city where I grew up, they have a technical high school focused on marine science.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But I didn't go there because I didn't know.
Didn't know it existed at the time, huh?
No, I know about that after. But most of the people I knew in college came from that high school. But also the big majority of my classmates in college were from states outside my city. They were coming from all different parts of Mexico, and some of them were from other countries because of the career was marine biologist, and in Mexico, that's one of the best careers for that specific area. Yeah,
and a beautiful place to learn, I'm sure. So what was that process like going through school, and where did you go from there?
Well, I fell in love with my career in day one. I was learning so much about all the ecosystems and different animals, and not just dolphins, no? Because most of the people, when you talk about marine biologists, they think about Oh, dolphins.
That's the first thing that comes into mind. Huh?
Yes. And then I came aware that it's so much more. And that was a whole new world for me. And I became very excited about my career. I finished it in 5 years. I didn't get a master because I jumped right in the volunteer in Guadalupe Island.
Mm.
And then that's how I became a ranger.
Yeah. So just curious, you said you eventually got into scuba diving. Was that while you were at university or was this later once you were at Guadalupe?
No, when I was in college. Yes.
Yeah.
It was one of the classes. It was optional, but of course everyone want to try scuba dive.
Can you remember your first scuba dive experience and what that was like?
Yes, I was very impressed about the sound you make with the
like the breather.
The breather, yes. It sounds like in the movies. and all the bubbles that float up to the surface. And once I passed that, I could see all the world that was submerged. And one of my first divings was in a shipwreck. Yes.
Oh man, that's exciting.
See, and we were in every corner of the ship.
Was it a pretty large ship?
Yes, it was a big one.
You see any sharks on that first dive?
No, but I was hoping to. Yes, I saw a bunch of sea stars, jellyfish. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
All the colors that you cannot imagine how much color you can find down there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had my first scuba experience. We were talking before the podcast about how I was in South Africa during the pandemic. And towards the end of that, I went with my buddy Matt to Sodwana, which is kind of on the east coast of South Africa, and got my open sea scuba certification there and went down, and they have some amazing coral reefs. And it was mind blowing.
Yes.
I mean, I was pretty hooked. I haven't gone since, but I'm like desperate to get back and do some more diving at some point.
You need to do it again.
And I didn't see any sharks either. So I really want to do shark diving at some point. So what drew you to Guadalupe Island? You said there was like a volunteer opportunity and that took you out there?
Yes. The institution that I work for is a government institution that have this volunteer program. And during my college years, I heard about the research that was going on Guadalupe Island, and that needed some people to go in a far, far island, the farthest island in Mexico, and to start recording some shark behavior. So I said, "Oh, I want to do that." Come in, and I imagine most people were going to apply for that. But not much people want to go too far, yes.
Do you think some of them were just afraid of the shark side of it too? And were like, I don't know, maybe not sharks.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and so I began volunteer for 3 months in Guadalupe Island. And then I met the rangers from that particular natural protected area. And I started working with them and all the work there. They were doing some restoration in the forest. They have a nursery for the plants. They have a community and they work with the community. And then I learned that the rangers do so much more. And once again, I was hooked in that world.
Yeah, so you were like, I want to do what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I was yes. You have the best job in the world.
That's so cool. I mean, so this podcast, the Rhino Man podcast, obviously we are talking about the rhinos and the poaching crisis, but on the ranger side, we really want to open it up to rangers beyond just the South African context, because I think that's something that maybe a lot of people don't understand, is that rangers do so many different roles, especially all over the world, so many different biospheres and places and things that they have to do. So I guess one question is, are there any Mexican rhinos that we don't know about?
No, we don't have rights.
Okay. That was just my bad joke. But so yeah, For Mexico, I'm sure there's a lot of variety in the types of work that rangers do too, depending on where they're at. But what are some more of the roles that rangers have? I mean, you kind of mentioned a couple of them, but could you talk maybe specifically to Guadalupe Island?
Guadalupe Island, we are an island. We have very different parts of ecosystem. We have the land part of the island and also the marine area that surrounds the island. In the land, we have small forests in the upper part of the island, and that has been very damaged because we have invasive species. We have like goats, and they end with all the vegetation. There are no more goats, but one of the works what the rangers are doing is restoration of the forest. We have pine forest, cypress forest, oak forest. It's a very small one, but it's endemic to the island.
Yeah.
So it's very important because it captures all the water. The few water that comes with the marine breeze depends of that forest. So one of the tasks is take care of that forest.
What's restoration look like? I mean, what's that process?
Oh, it's been amazing. When I started with volunteering, it was 10 years ago, and they were starting the restoration. Right now has been past 10 years, and the restoration is going amazing. I can see the difference. In 10 years, there's a lot of cover, the area that it's improving. And one of the success of that restoration is we have like 80% of viability of success of a plantation of reforestation that in land doesn't happen. That the percentage is like 30 or 40%. So it's been amazing, cool to see that, to be part of that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm making us jump around a lot, but as you're talking about this, I'm thinking maybe you should just give a little bit of try to paint like a word picture for people of what Guadalupe Island is, where it is, what the landscapes are like, maybe some of the endemic species.
Yes. Okay.
Just, so people get a sense of what it is that haven't been there or seen any pictures.
Okay. Well, Guadalupe Island is the most western island in Mexico. It is the boundary at the west. It is a volcanic island that has, I think, 18 million years.
Wow.
And it's surrounded by canyons. And we have another two small islets that are together with the Guadalupe Island. So the big island is Guadalupe Island. The smallest one are Zapato and Toro. And we have a different ecosystem, no? Well, we have the forest and we have small part of Chaparral. Also in that, in the main island, we have a community of fishermen and their families. They are fishing abalone and red lobster. And it's sustainable.
Oh, wow. Do you know about how many people live there?
About 80 to 100 people.
So it's pretty small population.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like 30 families or so. It had also a Navy base, and it's home of a lot of species like Guadalupe fur seal. We have elephant seal, California sea lion. It is a nesting site for Lysan albatross, storm petrel, and of course, it's home of the great white shark.
Yeah. I'm excited to get into the great whites for sure. Do you know much of the history? I was reading a little bit online about some of the history of, I don't know if it was the whaling that happened there, which, and they also poached a lot of seals or killed a lot of seals. And I think, is there a species that went extinct because of all the hunting?
Almost.
Okay.
In the early 18th century, it was not because of the whales, but for the fur seals.
Okay.
I want to say pirates. Go to the north, go to the Aleutian Islands, take slaves, and go to Guadalupe Island and hunt Guadalupe fur seal. This is a very small seal that is very fluffy. So they use the fur for goats. And also because it was a reproductive site for elephant seal, they hunt elephants for the fat.
Oh, wow. They were using that fat, the oil and fat to light their...
And then, and these two species almost get extinct because of that. But in the early 19th century, it was a banned area for hunting. That you cannot hunt anymore.
So they started protecting it at that point.
Yes.
And then it was like around 2005 that it became an official, almost like a national park.
Yes, and 2005 became a natural protected area with the category of biosphere reserve.
Yeah, and I'm guessing the people that were hunting the seals, are they the ones that brought all the goats that ended up eating everything?
Yes, and all the invasive species like cats also, and mice.
Do you know of any endemic species that did go extinct because of the hunting?
Well, it's been said that it exists one Guadalupe petrel that became extinct, and a lot of plants that were eaten by the goats. The goats were the ones that made the most damage to the vegetation and to the soil.
Yeah, they're just like little lawnmowers. They just keep eating and eating.
See.
All right. So I guess coming back to the ranger side of things. So you kind of started working with them. When were you able to make that leap to becoming one of the rangers?
Well, it was an open. When I finished the volunteer, I go back to my home, and a few months later, it was an opening for Guadalupe Island, and the rangers told me, "Hey, there is an opening. You need to participate if you want to be here with us." And yes, I made the cut. Yes.
Yeah, you already got to know everyone, huh? Passed the test.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super exciting. So how long have you been a ranger on Guadalupe Island now? Do you remember when you started?
Yeah, I just started in March 1st of 2013.
Oh, wow. Do you remember coming back to the islands and
yes,
realizing that you're a ranger now there?
Yeah, with my uniform.
Was there like a training process to become a ranger? You had all this study and everything. You were pretty much doing a lot of the work. Was there any steps that you had to take, or were you able to just kind of step into the job and learn?
Yeah, I kind of stepped in the job and I learned as I was learning more about the site. Of course, I have to study about the place that I was going to protect. But about the work that I was going to do in the field, I learned in the path.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Mexico, we don't have a school for rangers or a career that we can make.
Yeah, what do you call them, rangers in Mexico, or?
Guardaparques.
Okay. So it's like park guards.
Sí.
Yeah, it's always interesting because all over the world, everyone has kind of a different name for frontline workers, rangers.
Yes, and I think in Latin America, we name guardaparques as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we were talking about some of the roles that rangers play on the islands, and you were talking about, restoration of the forest. What else are you doing as a ranger?
Also, the link with the community is very important.
Yeah, talk about that. I feel like that's always a big thing with rangers. There's almost always community engagement and connecting with the local communities. So what's that like for you?
Yes, because of the natural of the community that is there is very small. So you can be part of that community with a lot of work. But also, they are a very open community. So they take you in and make you part of the community. So that's an advantage we can use for conservation. So they can be part of the conservation progress and process. And they are very engaged in that. They are very aware of the place they are living in, and that they depend on the resources that the island gives them. So with the community, we do a lot of environment education, and we also have some projects with the community. And one of the ones that I'm very proud of is that we put solar panels to power the village.
That's really cool.
Sí.
So these communities, I mean, the people that live in them, have they been there for quite a few generations? Like these families that have been fishing there?
Yeah, they've been in the island since the 50s.
Oh, wow.
They didn't have any power. They didn't have clean water, and they cook with the water that in the sea, the salt water.
So were they trading back and forth with the mainland, or how were they? Or were they just kind of completely self-sufficient?
No, because there is a Navy base there. The Mexican Navy has these monthly patrols from Ensenada to Guadalupe Island and back. And once a month, the community can go to the island or return from the island, and also to send some food and things they need in the island.
Yeah. So they actually will help transport people and food.
Yes, once a month.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Do you feel you guys as rangers are able to learn anything from them as well? I mean, I'm sure they have a pretty intimate knowledge of that area, and or even just you said like they'll help. I don't know if we can get into it too. If there's a law enforcement aspect to your work where, I don't know if there's any people that are fishing illegally or anything like that you have to watch out for. So I'm guessing communities would probably be helpful in spotting anything like that.
Yes, they are amazing for surveillance. Because of the island is very far, they don't have like illegal fishing, but it could happen. So they do patrol the marine area, and they are the ones that knew the area very well. And the sea, they can navigate with their eyes closed. I've learned a lot from them.
Have you had to learn how to operate a boat as well in this position, or?
Yes, and the fisherman told me.
Oh, really? That's so cool.
Yes, because it's a very complex area to navigate. There are a lot of rocks hidden beneath the water that you cannot see, but they knew they are there.
Mm-hmm. So what else along with community engagement are you doing? Is there like a research aspect to it as well?
Yes, there is another part of the ranger work that is research engagement. And this happens a lot of things. We have marine mammal research, sharks research, insects, and forest, and biophysical parameters in the sea. And it's like a natural laboratory. There are a lot of things that to research in Guadalupe.
What are you mainly doing with that research? Is it just kind of tracking over time, or are there any kind of like monitoring how the flora and fauna is doing, or things coming back? Or are there any specific species that you're really paying attention to? Anything like that?
Yes, both. With all the research that happened in Guadalupe, we can implement some actions to conserve what we are interested in, like the pinnipeds, the Guadalupe fur seal, the elephant seal. There are bioindicators of how the ecosystem is going. So if we track them through the time, we can see the fluctuation in the population, and we can see if they are going up or they are going down, and probably see why, or try to identify why is happening that, and implement some restrictions or some regulations that can be useful for the ecosystem. We have one regulation that called Programa de Manejo. It's a management program of the area. So it's a regulation and what you can do, what you cannot do, and what is going on in the area and why we are protecting it. So all the research that we are getting is for updating that management program. So all the research is very useful.
Yeah. So what you said, you've been a ranger there since 2013. It's almost 10 years now, huh? What changes have you noticed? Have you noticed any changes in populations, or, there's a lot of talk about climate change. I feel like everything's on fire all the time, everywhere. What have you noticed in Guadalupe Islands? Is there anything that's been changing?
Well, there are a lot of changes in 10 years. For example, we don't get that much lightning storms. And last year we have one big lightning storm and we have a fire. So Yes, and in that area to go to the area that was on fire, it was a monumental task, and that doesn't happen before. And also we've seen the fluctuations of the numbers of the pinnipeds. For example, the elephant seal. 10 years ago, you can see 5,000, 6,000 elephants, and this year we saw 800.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
Yes, it's a huge difference. And we think it's because we are losing sand beach.
Mm-hmm.
So the elephants love the sand and rest in the sand all the season. But we are getting out of sand.
Yeah, so just eroding away.
Yes. And it's because all the sand is washing from the shore. We have more storms that are washing all the sand from the beaches.
So you just feel like it's the storms are becoming more intense and the waves are hitting the island harder. So it's just kind of eroding faster.
Yes, and also because we can see in an island how the climate change is affecting. The sea is getting warmer, so we are seeing species that we didn't see in other days, in other years. Like
so other marine species.
A marine species, yes, like whale shark.
Yeah.
It's very rare. It's from warm waters, and we've seen those in Guadalupe.
Yeah, there's usually is the Sea of Cortez. Is that a place where whale sharks usually are?
Yes, and also the Caribbean.
The Caribbean, yeah.
Yeah, and Sea of Cortez, yes. But those are like 5 or 7 degrees difference.
Wow.
From Guadalupe.
Has it had an effect on the great whites?
We've seen more juvenile great white sharks, more than adults. We've seen that the juvenile great white sharks are getting nearer to the island. It's probably because Guadalupe Island is not where they born, but it is where they feed. So probably because on the coast of Baja, the nursery zones for the great white, so they are a lot in the continent, and they move to Guadalupe to feed. So probably we are seeing connection between land and the island, continent and island.
Yeah.
And probably it's because of the climate change.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like, everyone I talk to in different parts of the world, is definitely a lot of things happening in a short period of time. So yeah, you're doing a lot of research. Is there anything else that your job consists of? I mean, it seems like so much for one person or a team to be doing, but yeah, you've got community engagements, you're doing all this research, maintaining the land and the water.
We also do surveillance. And also, we cannot not do this on our own. So we collaborate a lot with another institutions and NGOs that help a lot with this. We also have an eradication program for exotic invasive species.
How do you eradicate exotic invasive species? I feel like this is always a job that rangers are a part of, but what's that process? It probably depends on the species, but
yes. Right now it is cat eradication program. We are not doing this on our own. It's an NGO that is taking care of a specific part, because a few years ago there were a lot of cats, and they probably were guilty of and like 5 or 6 species from the island. So of birds, marine birds mostly. And well, what they do with the cats is they track them and eradicate them. It is a thing. It is an issue.
Yeah. They ship them off to a little cat island somewhere, Yeah, it's super interesting, because a small island like that. How big is the island? I guess, do you know, in hectares or?
In hectares, 25,000 hectares, the land, and the marine area is the biggest. We have 425,000 hectares.
And you have to patrol that as well? Do the rangers patrol that, or do you kind of work with the Navy as well since they're there? Or?
Yes, we do that with the Navy and with the community also. They have a committee of surveillance for the community, and we do the surveillance with the Navy once a month with the big ships that go to the island.
Yeah, so everyone's kind of communicating back and forth, and if someone sees something or reports something, it'll get back to you.
Yeah, they are very aware of the piece of land that they are living.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw some piece of research, I think, that your name was connected to, but it was something with I think it was like the US Navy and SEAL. I don't know if it was like SEAL movements or something like that, or I don't know if that rings a bell, but it seemed like you were kind of collaborating on tracking SEAL movements and seeing if like Navy training areas were having any kind of effect. Maybe it was more the Mexican Navy, but I thought it said US on there.
Well, the first SEALs.
Yeah, maybe it was the first SEALs, yeah.
Yes, in 2014, we put some satellite tags tags in the flippers of the first SEALs to see where they were going. And one of them was found in Oregon, I think.
Wow.
Yes, 2 years later. And one tag was found in the belly of a shark.
They are food.
In California. Yes. And also with this tracking, we could know that these first SEALs are moving into the Sea of Cortez. They are beginning a small colony there, which is very rare because it's very hot in that part of Mexico. But they are moving probably because they are chasing the food.
Yeah. Chasing the food, good beaches.
See?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I guess, just kind of thinking about talking to people that maybe don't have as much of a connection to conservation or understand what rangers do, what would you tell someone about why rangers are important, from your perspective, from the work you do, the people you work with, and also other people that you've kind of gotten to know around the world? Why are rangers so important?
Because these are the people that are in the front line of conservation. These are the people that are taking care of the ecosystem, the biodiversity from which the rest of the world are depending on. And it's a very hard work that involves be away from your home from long periods of time, without communication, without the proper conditions, without the right payment. And all these rangers from all around the world are doing that because they care and because they love what they do and what they are protecting. And most people need to be aware of some of the sacrifices that the rangers doing that don't show in the news. And it is like an invisible work. Well, I don't want to say invisible, but it's not. You can see the work, but you cannot see.
Yeah, you don't know who's doing it.
You don't know who is doing. Yes,
people are just like, oh, these parks are thriving, but they don't understand it takes hundreds and thousands of people doing lots of work to make that happen. It was something I wanted to ask you, and when you were talking, it reminded me. But how long are you on the island at a time? Like, I don't know if you consider it a deployment or how you word it, but how long are you out there?
It depends on we are going to do, but most of the deployments are monthly based. So we go to the island with the Mexican Navy, we stay in the island for 1 month, and then go back to Ensenada, which is our base. And we are 5 rangers in Guadalupe Island, so we are rotating. Got you.
Are 5 rangers at a time on the island, or how many are on the island at one time? Is it just a couple of you?
No, one ranger at a time.
Oh, wow.
For the entire island.
So you're the Lone Ranger.
See? Yeah, it's not the ideal, no? Because for security.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of support from the community and the NGO and the Mexican Navy. So we do a partnership with these people.
Yeah, so you don't feel as alone as just being one person out there. You're working with a bunch of other organizations and people.
Yes.
How long are you on leave when you go home?
Well, I go home and do administrative work and then go back to the island, back and forth.
Yeah. So is it just like a week off from the island, or are you back there for?
Yes, like a week.
Yeah.
Like a week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's similar.
Sometimes less.
It's similar rotation to what a lot of the South African rangers do too. I mean, they're out on the reserves for about a month, and then they have a week of leave, get to go home, see the family, and then they come back. But yeah, Ensenada, I've been there a couple of times. It's actually a really awesome city, so it's a good place to be able to be on leave. Some of the best
Yes.
tacos de pescado that I've ever had. So.
Yeah, we had the best one in Mexico.
Do you do surfing at all when you're there? Are you into that?
No, I've tried, but it's not my thing.
Yeah, I keep trying.
It's fun.
I'm not great at it, but
I did surfing and I did boogie.
Yeah.
Also,
boogie boards are fun.
Yes, but the water is very cold for me.
Yeah, it is cold there. So let's go into the great white sharks and the cage diving, because I'd love to learn more about just the sharks around Guadalupe Island. I feel like I just listened to another podcast maybe yesterday. It was like totally unrelated, and this one guy was talking about his experience with the cage diving there, and it sounded pretty amazing. I mean, it's something I would love to do at some point. But can you talk about maybe just the shark populations? Why is there so many great whites there? And I don't know if you've done the cage diving yourself. Maybe you can kind of talk about that experience and what it was like for you.
Yeah, okay. It is a theory that the great white sharks are going to Guadalupe because we have the biggest elephant seal population of Mexico. It's not that as big as California and Año Nuevo Island, but so there in Guadalupe, they have a place to eat, a place to hide, a place to mate. Because of the shape of Guadalupe Island, it has a very protected bay with calm waters. So it would be the perfect spot for get.
Yeah, it's like an island getaway for sharks.
Yes. Yes. So they've seen through the years that the great white sharks are going for eating and also for reproductive purposes. They've seen pregnant females of great white sharks, and these huge animals, like 5 or 6 meters long. They are amazing. And because of this particularity of the gathering of the sharks and the calm place in the bay, their boats are going to cage diving. Mm-hmm. And also the water is very clear. You can see it through 30 meters away from.
Yeah, that's pretty far.
Yes. So you have all the conditions. You have the clear water, you have the calm sea, and you have a lot of sharks to see. So I had the opportunity to do cage diving in Guadalupe Island. It is an experience. Yes. You can see how they are not monsters, machine monsters that they are going to eat everything on their way. They are just doing their thing.
Yeah.
And when you are in the cage diving, you can see them just pass around you. They don't mind you at all.
Were you nervous at all when you first went down, or were you excited, or maybe a little of both?
No, excited. Yes. See, I am more afraid of crocodiles than great white sharks.
Luckily, there's no crocodiles around.
No, we don't have any. But yes, they are very magnificent creatures. They are very peaceful creatures. They are not mean machines.
Yeah.
They are not like the movie Jaws. No.
Yeah, great movie, but also probably gave sharks a bad reputation.
Yes. Yes.
Have you ever gotten out of the cage or done any of that type of swimming with the sharks? Or
no, that is not allowed in Guadalupe.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Going out of the cage is not allowed in Guadalupe Island. And
yeah, I saw. Maybe you were part of this as well. It was like a code of conduct for cage diving. Were you part of that paper or that document?
Yes, it is a guideline for what to do and what not to do to cage diving in Guadalupe. And one of those things is not taking out of your hands and your legs and not going out of the cage.
Yeah.
Because even sharks are doing their thing, how they are going to behave.
Mm-hmm.
And the point of the activity is just to be an outsider, an spectator of what is happening, not intervening with the sharks.
Yeah. It's like if you would walk up to a lion in the savannah and try to pet it or something, you don't want to do
Yes,
that.
no. Please don't do that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It sounds like an amazing experience. I definitely need to do it someday. I guess with the sharks, sticking on that for a little bit longer, have there been many changes? You said there were a lot more young sharks approaching juveniles.
Mm-hmm.
Have the numbers kind of stayed about the same, or have they changed over the years? Any changes?
We've seen an increase of the number of the juveniles of great white sharks, and probably is because they are born more in the continent and they are going to Guadalupe to feed, and because we have a lot of fish, tuna and yellowtail that the juveniles are feeding of. The adults are feeding of marine mammals, or the seals, but the juveniles are finding a place to hang out. And we've seen, well, we have a record. When the cage diving is happening, we take photos of the sharks and we try to identify them. They have a color pattern in the gills that are unique to each individual, so we can identify them. And we could been able to identify 350 sharks.
That's a lot.
Yes, and the number are increasing. This doesn't mean that this is the number of sharks in Guadalupe. These are the ones that we could identify, but probably there are more.
Yeah. So it seems like their populations, at least in that area, are doing pretty well.
Yes, in shark speaking, yes.
Isn't there one of them has like the nickname Big Blue or something like that? Is that?
Yes, Big Blue is the big female that was in social media.
Yeah.
And also she was pregnant in that photo.
Yeah, so she's giant, huh?
She's huge.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. What do you know her size?
Almost 6 meters.
Wow. It's like a bus swimming through the water, basically, huh?
See.
It's super impressive. I guess as a ranger in Mexico, I mean, we talk about this a lot, some of the struggles and the solutions for rangers moving forward. What are some of the challenges, I guess, as a ranger, and what are some things that are people are trying to do to improve things?
In particularity in Mexico, is the ranger figure is not recognized in the Mexican law. So this gives instability of the job of the rangers. So one of the things that most of the rangers in Mexico are trying to promote is the recognition of the work, so get better payment and better conditions, and also leave permit.
Oh yeah, to be able to take leave, like have longer vacations or time away from work. Yeah.
Yeah, to rest. Yeah. It's a demanding job.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. You've listed off like a dozen different things you're doing, and you're kind of, especially as I wasn't even thinking there's just one person on an island like this. It's a lot of pressure to be taking care of it. Mm-hmm. And I think I also, doing a little bit of research ahead of time, I came across there were some rangers that are protecting the monarch butterflies. And some of those areas have a lot of maybe some more cartel type activity. So it's, they're even have to be heavily armed just to protect, it's almost kind of like a pretty stark contrast. You're protecting these delicate little butterflies and you've got machine guns and stuff. So yeah.
Yes. And also in the turtle nesting sites, there are very dangerous parts. In Mexico, it is not like in Costa Rica where the rangers can be armed. In Mexico, we don't have that.
So you have to be law enforcement or military to have weapons.
Yes. So we to do the patrols, we need to be side by side with the Navy or with the military or with the police, because in some parts of natural protected areas in Mexico, there are a lot of dangers that there are human dangers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. people doing illegal activities that might be someone you don't want to run into.
Yes, like poaching and drugs cartel. And
so you said, trying to get the rangers recognized as a profession is part of that, trying to kind of be recognized more like other frontline workers like police and fire and those types of positions.
Yes, something like that, because we also get to do all that things. We are firefighters too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and we can do police work, and we also have to be rescue team.
Yeah, have you had any experiences where you had to do any kind of rescue work?
Not me, but other rangers in other areas here in Baja.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big part of what the Universal Ranger Support Alliance is trying to push, making that position more highly regarded around the world. And definitely, hopefully with our film, we'll be able to put some pressure as well on different organizations and governments. Because, I mean, we want to protect all these areas that are super important to us, but it's tough to make someone go out there, even, you're passionate about it, but it's not fair to, not pay you well, not support you, not recognize your position, things like that. So definitely a lot of things that need to change. Are there any other challenges that you feel like you're facing or that other rangers in Mexico are facing?
Well, probably the low budget that Mexico are putting in this kind of work. Yes.
Yeah. Is there a lot of NGO support there? Like South Africa, there's a lot of other organizations that are helping out.
Yes, we have a lot of alliance with NGOs and some academic institutions also. Yes, and that's why all this work is getting done, because the alliance we have with other partners.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're spending crazy hours out there doing all these different jobs, kind of by yourself on this island to some degree as a ranger. And, why do you do this job? What do you love about being a marine biologist, being a ranger, being out there?
Wow. I think the part of being part of something important, that we have this amazing place in Mexico that not much people know about it, and gives a lot for Mexico. And this feeling that I am part of that I am protecting this small part of island of my country, is very enrichment for me. Yeah, I think is that what I love about most of my work. Mm-hmm.
What do your friends and family say? Are they like, "You're crazy. What are you doing?"
Yes. How could you be in an island with no internet connection? How do you do that? Yes, that's why I like it.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably the best part. Huh? You just get to disconnect. Yeah.
Yes, disconnect totally.
Yeah.
You don't have phone calls. You don't have internet. You don't have social media. It's a peace that you feel when you go to Guadalupe, because you don't hear any of that.
Yeah. I mean, connected to that, what would you tell someone that maybe has never been to Guadalupe Island, or maybe doesn't really think about conservation and protected areas? What are they missing, or what would the world be missing without these places?
Well, pieces of the world that has not been that doesn't have very much alteration, and you don't have that anymore in the world. Yeah, the rest of the world is very damaged already. So protecting these sites, these places, are the ones that are going to remain after all the damage that has been done in the world. And if we don't protect this right now, we don't have another chance.
Yeah, well put. Do you have any advice for maybe specifically towards women considering becoming a ranger, going into conservation, doing frontline work? What would you tell them?
Go do it. Jump for it. It's very satisfying work. It is hard because it is work that is dominated by men, but we are getting more in there. So I think in my institution, probably it would be almost 50-50, females and males. It's very fun. So we can do all the things that supposed to be for men. We can do that too. But you need to try it. And the possibilities are out there, but you need to work your way through it.
Yeah.
In Mexico, there are some female ranger squads that are specializing in firefighting.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's super cool.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to be one of them.
What part of Mexico?
In Guanajuato.
Guanajuato.
It's in the central part of Mexico.
Okay.
Near Mexico City, like 4 hours away from Mexico City. But Guanajuato is a part with it's surrounded by forest, and there are a lot of natural protected areas, tiny ones in between.
Yeah.
And there are women fighting for the forest and saving them from the fires.
Wow. That sounds like a movie right there. Maybe that's the next one. Well, Donaxi, is there anything else you want to leave us with? I mean, this has been really awesome getting to know more about your story and the work you're doing.
No, well, to say hello to all the rangers that are listening, and all the people that want to be a ranger, go for it. It's not easy, but it's a very satisfying job. And once you are a ranger, you will always be a ranger.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there any way that people can either follow the work you're doing or your organization's doing, or just learn more about Guadalupe Island?
Well, we have a Facebook page. It is called Reserva de la Biosfera Isla Guadalupe. I can give you the link.
Yeah, I'll put it on our site.
Yes. And also the webpage of the institution is Comisión Nacional de Áreas Naturales Protegidas in Mexico. And you can see all the work, not just for Guadalupe Island, but all the protected areas in Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely put all those links up and encourage people to go check them out. But yeah, this is so awesome, Donaxi. It was great to reconnect after, feels like yesterday, but it's been years now.
Yes.
And
I want to go back.
Yeah, learn about your story. So we'll have to meet again at the next ranger gathering, or maybe when I go shark diving one of these days.
Yes. We'll see you. We'll see you around.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for listening to the Rhino Man podcast. Well, thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, I'm excited to see definitely will come back to Ensenada. Please subscribe and review our podcast on Spotify and iTunes. Awesome. Then follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Rhino Man the Movie. More details about Rhino Man, the social impact campaign, and future screenings are at rhinomanthemovie.org. To learn more about the Global Conservation Corps and their work, visit globalconservationcorps.org. Sign up for the newsletter and follow GCC on all of the social platforms. If you like this podcast, make sure to subscribe and catch up on GCC's Voices of Nature podcast, where Bob Ludke interviews a wide range of people who have dedicated their lives to making a difference in conservation. A special thanks goes out to Simone Wilson for the music for this podcast. He's the brilliant composer for Rhino Man the Movie. Learn more about his work at simonewilsonmusic.com. Until next time, I'm John Jerko, and this is the Rhino Man Podcast.